I just saw so much of me in him. And I think that he was such a role model for me because everything that I had in my personality was uh, visible in him, and he was competing.
Right. So here I am with KangruKenny, the coach of Into the Breach. And Kenny, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, and so I will start this off with saying that Tom Sherlock on the Into the Breach channel has done a really good job interviewing both Kenny and also the some of the players from Into the Breach. I believe he also did one with Kendrew that released a day or two ago as of recording, and he's done a lot of good questions, a lot of good stuff. So I'm building off that. So shout out Tom for both making my job harder and a lot more fun. So go watch those interviews. I'm not going to try and cover the same topics because that's boring for everyone involved. To start things out, I did want to kind of like set the stage a little bit because Creeds and Oscar came in for the start of stage one. You know, Oscar is a player that the way the desk kind of described him is he's been the next up for like the past 7 years or whatever. You know, when someone's next up for that long, was there ever a risk or a concern of, you know, maybe he's just doesn't have it or there's a reason he's always been next up and has never gotten the call up? Or was it just like, no, Oscar's a straight upgrade. We know what we're getting. We know he can make the jump.
I know exactly why Oscar had been in T2 for so long and hadn't made the jump to T1. Everyone knew he was T1 worthy, and he had had a lot of trials through his career, like a lot, and he never got any of them. But Oscar is not a trials player. So he is a player that excels when he understands his job on every site, every strat, every attack, every defense. He knows like the what his job is. He knows what his purpose is in the round, and that only comes from time, and that only comes from being able to learn and physically build yourself into a team. And so
Okay.
when he's trialing, you just get given random strats.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily understand the theory behind it. You get given, okay, this is your position, but you don't really get given in a lot of teams. How I understand trials are done in other teams, it's you don't really get. There's no purpose to that. It's just a lot of defaults, but he has to really understand what he has to do. And so in trials, he never really excelled
Okay.
because he has to he has to really ingrain himself into a team and understand at a deeper level to get the best out of him. And once you get the best out of him, he is really good.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so we never trialed Oscar because it was a straight pickup. For like we had no trials. I just said to the team like, trust me, I know he's exactly what I want, and we got him. And if we did trial him, you know, he may have not looked as good, and then the team come to judge him, and it's like,
Okay.
is he an upgrade? You know,
Yeah.
but me, I've been on a team previously with him, and I know what he's capable of, and the team trusts my judgment. So there he
Yeah.
is in the team now.
So that does actually answer one of my follow-ups because one of the things I wanted to ask about him was like he seems like a player that as the stage progressed, we started seeing more and more impact out of him, particularly on the kill feed, which of course I
Hmm.
know, particularly for his roles, kill feed is not king of impact, but it's still a good metric, and you could kind of see he started playing once he knew the system and like what his role was. He started playing with that and like having more consistent impact. So that does answer why we started seeing that uptick as things progressed, which is really cool. Do you think that like settling players into the backline is like easier or harder compared to the front line? Because you also integrated Creeds into this roster, and it's kind of like Oscar. Obviously, it seems like his temperament maybe he needs a little work to feel comfortable, and that's where you get maximum impact. But if we're talking like integrating a hard support player versus an entry, which one do you think is like harder to get into the team and kind of working well?
Um, I I'm gonna contradict myself very hard. I think entry is the hardest role in the game, but I think it's harder to integrate a support player
Okay.
because at the highest level, entries have the most important job, in my opinion. They either open up the round or they die and they don't open up the round.
Yeah.
And the round, we know the metric that everyone loves to use is entry conversion. And team that gets the opening pick more than likely will win the round. So there's a lot of pressure and a lot of things that an entry needs to do right. And at the highest level, they've got to be very intelligent about how they entry. So I think entry is the hardest role, but I think it's very easy to integrate an entry into your system because at a bare bones level, it is okay. This is where the area of the map we want you to take. Go and take it. That's really all you can do. But
Yeah.
a support player has so many extra little things to learn. Like you have to enable other people. You have to actually droning. People don't put a lot of emphasis on droning, in my opinion, but there is a very noticeable difference between a good droner and an average droner.
Yeah.
So like droning has a high skill ceiling, enabling people has a high skill ceiling. Then you have to obviously do the heavy lifting in terms of utility and be smart about your utility usage. You have to be able to shot call off what you see on your drone. You have to be able to order people around from what you see. So it takes a long, not a long time, but a support player to get comfortable and understand, as I said, like their purpose in the rounds and what their limits are and flexibility is. Because a lot of support players don't have the flexibility that, say, an entry or a flex does in the map. You know, they have to open this wall. They have to be in this position to go for the plant. There's not a lot of times that you can be flexible and you can kind of be free. So you've really got to understand like your limits and whether, okay, I have to stay alive, I can't peak this, or I have the freedom to peak this because who I am in the round isn't very important. So yeah, it's a lot more difficult, and that's probably why you see when people change, they don't change supports a lot in a team because it is difficult to really find like a out and out upgrade given timeframes.
Yeah. And so I did want to ask, I know the Kanto drop was not something that was necessarily desired, and we don't have to get into reasons why, but it wasn't a roster move that you wanted to make. Was there a worry that losing such a veteran voice, I mean, the guy's like, he's won everything under the sun and then some, right? Was there a worry that losing that kind of veteran voice would be problematic, or was it kind of like, you know, we still have Kendrew, he's also a champion in his own right, you're still here, we can make this work, and like we can work through this?
It was definitely a blow to the team because, as you said, it was unexpected and it wasn't planned, and we were planning to how we were going to formulate our practice going into stage one, sorry, and then we just kind of had a complete abandoned ship in terms of oh shit, we need to make a change. You know, it just kind of came out of the blue, and then you got to think of who's going to fit. Then you got to start a trial period, and then you've got to reinvent them into strats, and then there's a long process with even just one player change. Obviously, we ended up making 2 player changes. I think the Kanto loss was tough to see. It was tough to see what we were going to gain because I don't think the market currently in Europe is very prosperous. And that is a direct, and I will say a direct result of EU Tier 3, Tier 2 being non-existent. Like, there are no competitions, there's nothing to work for, there's no motivation there. The players who have stuck around, but they don't have enough competition to show themselves or to build consistency or develop as a player. Obviously, I spent a long time in Tier 2, Tier 3, and I know how beneficial like a long season or a long stage or a lot of time to have motivators in terms of whether it was Challenger League to win or whether it was, you know, MPL or if it was the French National League. You need something as a player who doesn't earn any money from the game to keep you invested. And as such, the players, I don't think are really at tier 1 level to pick up. Like, you need to pick up either or recycle a player, or you need to really be invested into a young player and understand that they're going to take time because the time that previously they would have had in tier 3, tier 2 to develop, you now need to develop them in tier 1, which is as we
Bigger
all know,
ask.
tier 1 is very, very volatile and very tough.
Yeah.
So it was hard at the time because we thought we weren't going to be able to match what Kanto gave us. And that was kind of the reason why we also snowballed into changing Yonka out. We just thought like we lost too much from Kanto and we didn't think we would be able to replace it. So we needed to then upgrade the firepower in other departments.
I see.
But as I said to the team at the time, I'm a massive believer in everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And even though it feels shit at the time, it happens for a reason. And that was the whole thing in tier 2 when I was with 10 star. When any player got taken from me and gone to tier 1, and obviously that's not a bad thing, but it's something we had to deal with.
Yeah.
Whenever that happened, we actually ended up being better every time. So, and I just kind of learned, and that's like what I carry with me, that everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, and so, I mean, kind of worked out because you qualified from a major, and from the Tom interview, I believe it was you. The goal was just qualify for a major, and you made the first one, so that makes mission complete already. It's pretty easy now. Just make the next one. I was rather surprised to hear like Azur is actually one of your most vocal players on this squad. Like, what are the benefits of having one of your primary entries like be one of those like vocal shot caller type players? Because I mean, clearly it's doing something because you have the best entry stats of the EUL, right?
Yeah, I mean, Azza for the longest time, and obviously I'm going to be biased, but I think he's the most underrated player in Europe by far. A lot of people don't know, excuse me, a lot of people don't know that he is a massive vocal player for the team. And the whole way through 10 star, he was kind of our primary caller as well.
Really?
Yeah, so like he was playing entry. He went for a time of being hard lurker, but we figured that primary caller on a serious lurk role wasn't always the best.
Yeah.
So I quickly learned that Azza is a very vital part to any team because, as you said, having a frontline caller is really strong in this game. Him being able to see the round from an entries perspective and being able to like take control and see the round for what it is and create a whole take or a whole execute based of what he sees is really influential. And I think that's what gives us a really good balance, is that we have Kendra in the back line, who is capable of doing it, and then we have Azra in the front line. So we have a really nice balance, and it's not just all one person heavy lifting. We share it, and you know, if I've never been a fan of one IGL in this game because they only see one thing. They only see their perspective. They don't see, you've got 10 drones, they only see 2 of them. And then obviously if they're flicking them, their flank cams are not useful. But if you see 2 people, then you double the perspective or the what you see on the map. And then we also have like Creeds and Oscar, who are both able to shot call based off what they see. So technically we've got two primary callers in Kenny and Azza, and then we've got 2 shot callers who are able to spot gaps, spot opportunities, spot things that we can exploit in Oscar and Creeds. And it gives us a really nice balance, and it keeps us really up to date with the meta because we have a lot of people who can spot things.
Yeah. And so I want to talk about the stage proper now. Your first match was against Wolves, and you know, coming into the stage, you're looking at Wolves and you're going, this is one of the top dogs in Europe. You know, they attended like what, every major for the past however many stages. They've gone to SI, they're like a top team, they're international contenders. This must have been a big deal to win this match, right? Like really put some wind in the sails, because that's a big scalp. Like, it was a close match, partially because it's consulate defense, but like also partially just because it's a close match. Like, was this a really big win for the team, or was it just kind of business as expected? We saw this outcome before the match even loaded up.
I think it's really cool to think back on the start of our stage in hindsight. Obviously, after it's all been said and done, um, our practice when we built the roster and just before EUL was fantastic. I don't think I've ever had practice results, and I don't take a lot from like results, but you can't help but look,
Yeah.
and infer from the results that you are getting in scrims. I've never had as good a month of results as pre EUL. It was fantastic, and um, I had a couple of teams. Obviously, when just before EUL, you don't scrim a lot of EUL teams, just so
Yeah.
you're hiding. And I remember scrimming people, and they were like surprised with how good we were, and they were saying like, "Oh, we were quite competitive with the teams that you think are at the top of EU. Oh, we're competitive with Wolves, G2, VP, BDS, but then like we scrimmed you guys, and you guys just ran over us." And and so going into the season, it's not like our expectations were actually, oh, this is just going to be a season to get into things. I think we all genuinely knew we could qualify for the major at the start of the season. And
Okay.
when I set our expectations at the start of the roster, when we brought Creed and Oscar on, it was, as you said, qualify for one of the two majors. More than likely, it's going to be the second major. We're an extremely young team, but I think when we got to that first game against Wolves, I think the energy and the mood and the camp was really good, and we all knew that if we played to how we've been practicing, we can definitely make this major, and we can compete with the best teams in Europe.
Yeah. And so was there like a particular team that you were hoping to beat in the regular stage of the EUL? And I know you've got this like running rivalry with Secret because you were both on the up and up during the stage. You both had it's like the Adrian Creed story. You've got like all these kind of like entanglements. But was there a team that you really just wanted to like take down a notch, and you actually managed to, or you didn't? I know BDS on border is definitely a talking point here as well.
Yeah, the outside perspective will be Secret's our rival. I really want us to be Ents.
Okay.
Um, we had a, I had a little tick on Twitter after we beat them, but that's just a revenge. The only reason I wanted to beat them was revenge because we we beat them in Malta quals, and then they qualified for Malta, and obviously we had our internal issues that meant that we had to play with Leonski instead of Kanto, and then we didn't qualify for Malta, and then they mocked us for not qualifying, and they did when we literally were playing with a coach and a sub. So, like, fair enough. If we didn't make it, whatever. But the fact that they actively mocked me, I held on to that. So I really wanted to beat them in their first stage of EUL, and it was even sweeter that we what's the word? Like we oh my god, I can't think of the word. But
Oh.
like we stopped them getting playoffs.
Oh,
We
yeah,
we
yeah. You denied
they
them.
had to beat us to make playoffs, so it made it even sweeter.
Okay, I respect it. I respect it, and I do want to ask, when you qualified for the major. You obviously not your first land because you've been like at certain points in time. T2 EU has had periods of thriving and less thriving, but you've been to lands before. You've coached on land. You're very energetic and you're going up against people like Ashen, people like that. These are some very loud, brash Americans, right? And you match them pound for pound as far as energy goes. Like, is this something that you actively lean into, or is this just something that kind of happens?
It's something that happens. I can't control it. Like I just love competition. I love competing, and it's just a byproduct. Like I can't stop it, even if I want to. It just kind of I just love winning, and yeah, if there's someone matching me across, it brings it out of me even more. So it's just who I am. I just love competition. If we're winning, I'm screaming. I'm the same at home. Like if I'm coaching here and we're playing online, I'm in my room screaming.
Yeah.
So it's the exact same, and I love it. It's all friendly competition, you know. If Ashton's shouting at me, I'm shouting at him. Like we both know, and everyone I think inside of Siege knows that it's all friendly competition, and you're
Yeah.
just trying to, yeah, in a way you are trying to like Billy Big Bollocks one up the other person, but
Yeah.
we all know, and on land you actually can't hear them.
Really?
The headsets are so noise cancelling. Like when they're shouting, if they shout really loud, you can hear that someone is shouting, but you can never make out what they're saying. And as coaches, you don't have the in-ears in because
Yeah.
obviously you don't need to hear the game. So all the players have the in-ears in. I can't hear with just a headset. The players definitely can't hear anything with the in-ears in as well. So the shouting is kind of completely pointless because of that, but you know it's still all fun.
Yeah, yeah. And unless I'm misunderstanding, I could have sworn I saw something on Twitter where like you almost have like a code of what like when you're getting hyped up behind the boys because it's like you're not yelling at the opponent or like being disrespectful to them, but it's more like gassing up your own boys. Am I
Yeah, it's
misunderstanding?
just yeah. Whenever we win a round, I'm just shouting for us. Like I don't care about the other team. Like whatever they do, they do. I'm not a nasty person. Like I won't be shouting that they're shit or anything. I just want, I just love seeing our work pay off, and that's what brings out the motivation in me because we have people probably notice but we have quite like a stoic team. Like
Yeah.
we don't have an Ashen on the team, you know.
I don't
So
know. Stone faced Oscar really gave me those impressions. You know, I could have sworn I heard it from here.
yeah, so we have quite a stoic team. So I need to be the one to, you know, keep like give them the energy. Like we it's not a bad thing to be stoic. Like it means that the players are level, and the players should be level because
Yeah, yeah.
if the one of the players, I have always thought like if a player's shouting, then they're losing their energy to play the game. If I lose my energy, it doesn't matter. Like who cares? I'm not playing the game. But the games are so intense and takes so much concentration and focus that if you start shouting, and it's what Kenny said to me, and people obviously saw him shouting during the SSG game. He said like after that game, he said he just can't shout anymore. Like it took so much out of him. And then we had a second game on that day, you know, and he was quite low energy for that game because the shouting took it out of him in the
Okay.
SSG game. So yeah, I've always been a believer. Like the players, you know, they keep stoic. I'm the one to hype them up. Just gives them that like good feeling. You know, they've done something good. They get the positive reinforcement from me, and then move on to the next round. They've got a little bounce in their step to carry on.
Yeah, and how do you think the major went overall? Because I know you one of the things you were interested in from the Tom interview once again is you know how it's gonna be going up against those like international styles like going up against a DZ or a Bleed or an SSG, you know, Crank Station, all that jazz. How did going up against these different play styles pan out, and like how do you think you guys did overall for your first major?
It was extremely fun. I'm actually disappointed we didn't get to play with Brazilian team. Uh, we played three NA teams and one APAC, which I would have liked to have played at least one Brazilian team.
Yeah.
But you get dealt the cards you're dealt. You can't really help it. So it's fun to play different styles, and you do see like different styles on maps and how different regions play the maps, how they have different play styles. One thing that was quite funny, when we played Bleed, and after the game, Julio came to me, and we had a round where they were defending basement on Nighthaven, and I think the spectator caught it. Kendrew walked down EXO, through EXO,
Oh yeah.
into the bomb site, and there was no one. There was no utility. There was nothing, and he ended up not getting a kill, but I remember speaking to him after it. It was like he was so surprised that there was just nothing and no one that he didn't then know what to do. And Julio spoke to me after the game, and he said, you know, you guys went EXO on that basement attack, and I said, yeah, what about it? And he said, well, no one ever in APAC goes EXO. And I said, that completely makes sense because you had no utility for it. You didn't have any traps. You didn't have any information. You didn't even have a player there. And he said, yeah, that's because no one in APAC ever attacks EXO. So we don't need to have anything for it. And we don't expect people to go EXO. So you see there, like, the difference in styles. And in Europe, like, EXO is the main thing, you know? Everyone goes kitchen into EXO. So it's quite funny to play different styles and see how those different styles clash.
Yeah.
Which as a coach is cool to see in your prep. You know, you've got to figure out the other team. You've got to see what works for you against them, etc. The major overall, I think we'll all say we're disappointed.
Yeah.
Um, I think if I'm being brutally honest, we played shit, like real shit. I think we were probably at 20% of our EUL capacity. We it was and it's probably because we were just really bad form coming into the major. We had a break. We had like a boot camp break just after EUL had ended. So we played the BDS final on a Tuesday, and then we went to boot camp the Wednesday.
Oh,
And then
okay.
we had like a chill boot camp. So the boot camp was obviously pre-booked. It was booked for if we didn't make it through playoffs, we would play the LCQs at the boot camp. So
Okay.
that was the plan for the boot camp. But it happened we qualified for the major, so the boot camp didn't really have a purpose. And so we just used it as like a relaxation and kind of like a team bonding boot camp. So we would do more stuff together. We only really had like one scrim a day. Like we just do 3 maps a day. And the rest was, you know, team bonding. We would either go to a bar or go bowling or, you know, just go to the shopping center, just like team bonding. And I think it was in theory, it was useful because rather than that first time seeing everyone being at the major in a very different environment, we were able to bond in a less stressful environment. But how it turns out, after the boot camp, like we went home and obviously we started practicing for the major, we were in a really bad, that our results were really bad.
Yeah.
And we were really struggling as a team, and we just never could find that form again that we had in EUL. And I think just the rocky nature of the boot camp, we never really had a rest because obviously we went to boot camp. We still do want to practice,
Yeah, yeah. You
so we
don't
never
want to
had
just
a
like be at a boot camp and like be with these PCs to practice and just never actually use them.
yeah.
So
So we just found it was just weird that we didn't have a break, but we did have a break, and now we were back, and it, the I don't know, the aura of the team just was thrown off kilter a bit.
do
And
you
we could.
think playing in stage or phase one, pardon, of the major would have helped that? You know, have easier opponents to like kind of ramp up against before getting thrown into the Swiss stage with like some more big dogs that are, you know, give you less room to breathe and a little less
Mm,
room to play with.
I I don't think so. Just because we weren't able to get out of the rut we were in.
Okay.
Like we just couldn't click. You know, it was hard because we could just find that magic again. We just struggled to. And as a coach, I've never really experienced that before. Like in my whole time in T2, it was always strength to strength to strength to strength, and I never really experienced a team like struggling. So I didn't have the answers, and we tried different methods that we thought would be causing it, and tried to get out of the rut, but we never found something that was successful. So we were just going into the major knowing that we weren't on top form. Obviously, that doesn't mean that we weren't going to go out and give it our all, which
Yeah.
by hell we did. And I still think like we rose to the occasion and we did play better than we were in practice, but it was never at the ITB that we were in EUL. So it was always going to be hard. And in that regard, it's disappointing because we didn't fulfill our potential. You know, I really do think we would have made main stage if we were playing at full capacity. But first event for 4 people, first event for me at like an actual major, and there were a lot of learnings and a lot of things that, you know, caused us to struggle. at the event itself, adding on top of the bad run of Formula.
Yeah, and I know for some people, like nationality in esports is a very big deal. Like playing for a look at Navi playing for a Ukrainian organization as a Ukrainian player. That's a very big deal for some people. Playing in front of a Ukrainian crowd was there like a big motivation to play in front of a Manchester crowd to be representing a British organization in ITB in front of a crowd? Like, was this a big motivating factor for you?
Yeah, it was. You never know when there's going to be a UK major again,
Yeah.
and to have the ability to have the chance of that storyline, for UK players, UK coach, UK org at a UK major. It would have been great to play on stage. Like I don't think anyone can disagree with that. There wasn't really, because there wasn't a G2. I don't think there really was a home team. Like you could argue Team Secret, but they only have one British player.
Yeah.
Even though the org's British, and then obviously BDS are more leaning French. Obviously now they've come English speaking, but it,
Not
we were
quite.
in my eyes, like apart from G2, who would have been the massive crowd favorite, we would have had a massive backing, and it was a shame to not make it. But as I said, like everything happens for a reason. It just gives us more fuel and more energy to make main stage next time we hopefully qualify for an event.
Yeah, and I think I heard this from fighting games, but it's not L's, it's lessons. So you learn from it and you move on.
Yeah.
But I did want to ask this as we're kind of winding down here. You tweeted out that Canadian has been a big influence when it comes to getting started in esports, getting involved. I think it was the Paris major.
Yeah.
What aspects of his game resonated with you when you were first getting started? Like, was it the passion, the tactics, the EG storyline of always coming in second and never winning against G2? God damn it! Or like, and what did it mean to kind of be attending the same event as this guy? Because he's been here since the start, right? And you've made your way up, and now you're competing in the same damn event as him, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I just saw so much of me in him. And I think that he was such a role model for me because everything that I had in my personality was visible in him, and he was competing. And I just thought that like he has so much passion for the game, and I share the same. Canadian of old was shouting. He was so energetic. He loved winning. I remember like watching interviews and when him and Intero started 6-on-6 and just speaking generally about the game, or like when he's used to stream. All of the way he thought about competition. He came from ice hockey.
Yeah.
Got an injury and or like head concussion, and then had to settle with esports. But he loved competition so much that he still needed to fuel that. And for me, I'm the exact same. So from the 5 years old, I did martial arts, taekwondo.
Nice.
Up until about 16, and I was competing at international events. And like the worlds for taekwondo. I played, even though my stature doesn't show it, I played rugby for a long time during my childhood. And I had to be a winger. Like I didn't have the build for anything else in rugby. But yeah, I played rugby. I did taekwondo. Like I was massively sport driven. And I got a really bad knee injury, which I can never. They're both heavy contact sports and both very heavy on the knees. So I ended up like not being able to compete anymore. And I then had to fuel that drive to win, that drive for competition elsewhere. And it is like the same storyline is just filtering from Troy to my own life. So he just became a massive role model, and then I followed EG. And I said like to myself, I just love Siege, and I love like the tactics and the strategy of it, because I'm a very logical person as well, and the strategy to the game is very logical. And he's been just. Yeah, I was kind of like, it was really weird because I felt like I was a fan at the event. We turned up to the hotel, and outside the hotel was Herds and JV92, and I'm like, oh my God, there's herds in JV92, and then I'm walking around the hotel, and I'm seeing Citizen, and I'm seeing Doki, and just these people I've watched all my life, like growing up and wanting to do what they do, and now I'm here. It was kind of hard for me not to fan over them.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
was
yeah,
talking with
it
Froshi, and
was
he
a
was
weird
like,
dynamic.
"It's weird teaming with Hot and Cold because I've been watching him since I was in middle school, and now I'm on the same
Yeah,
team as him. It's like it's the same thing with the other guys like on other teams as well."
yeah. So
All right.
it was really cool.
Yeah. I figure this is a good place to end it. You know, we've been going for quite a while. Is there anything you want to say to close out? Anyone you want to shout out? Any like sponsorships or whatever that you wanna plug? Any of that good stuff?
Well, just thank you for the interview. I always enjoy like speaking to people, and any content in and around Siege is good content in my opinion. We all love the game, we love the esports, so anything is positive to be able to broaden any interest in the game, and obviously the just esports content in general is lacking, as so to speak. So I'm always up for it. So thank you for having me on, and
Yeah.
for obviously ITB lovers. Thank you very much for the support. Like the amount of jerseys that I saw at the major was phenomenal. Like although we didn't make it, like people just going around in their ITB jerseys. The support was, even though we didn't make it, it was actually really nice in a way not to make the main stage, because we got to see all that. We got to be in and amongst the crowd, in amongst like the support. We had like a fan zone for
Yeah,
the
yeah, you did.
evenings where you could meet us, drink, just have a nice time, and the turnout for those were really good. And I was actually surprised with how many people turned up. So yeah, the support for us is obviously there, and I appreciate it massively, because it's always like a really nice feeling to have people behind you.